Are we unmuted?
Oh, okay, we're good. I forgot what I was going to say. Good morning. I'd like to call the Tuesday, March 15, Planning and Policy meeting to order. The first thing on our agenda this morning will be public comment. And we ask that you state your name and address and limit your time to 3 minutes, please. And seeing none, we will move right on to the approval of the consent agenda. Could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? So move.
Supported.
We have motion and support. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Under action items. The first motion is this, to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the revised proposal from Pride Builders Group LLC in the amount of $96,500 for the reconstruction of the Gross Park Maintenance Building.
Second.
We have a motion and support. Jason, is there anything you want to add on that at all? Or Kurt, I'm sorry, you're sitting there so quietly. Good morning, Kurt.
Good morning. This came to you before our low bidder. We engaged in negotiations with them to finalize the contract, and we were not able to reach an agreement. So we went to the second low bidder, which is this Pride Builders. So we hope to move this along as quickly as possible. It's already taken longer than we hoped to get someone under contract and rebuild our building because we need it. So.
And refreshing all of our memories, this is a building that was the arson project, or not project, arson. And
Correct. Yes, this building was burned down. When was that? In September. So quite a while ago. We were working with the insurance authority to replace all the items in it, vehicles, tools, all that stuff. Now we need a place to put them. This building is at Gross Park, so way in the northeast corner of the county. We use it primarily to help us service the Restroom trail in addition to the park, Gross Park itself.
Did someone log in to the meeting?
That might be good enough.
There's still a hum coming from it.
Yeah,
Questions?
yeah. Was this building leveled? I mean, did it all burn down? We're not patching on to it.
No, it was totally leveled. We are going to be able to salvage the foundation that was underground, but everything above.
Okay, so it's gonna be about the same size and everything.
Exact same size. We're making a few minor improvements, so it'll work better for us. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? So we have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next, regarding the grant application for Ottawa Sands, the motion is to improve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the resolution and application to the Michigan National Resource Trust Fund program for funding assistance to construct the Ottawa Sands Lake Loop project in the Idaho Explorers Trail Connector. Okay, so we have a motion and support. Discussion on that.
Still on. That seems better. We'll see.
I think if you talk back, if you stand
Move back a little bit. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
You're still carrying.
So most of you know at Ottawa Sands, we completed a master. We're going to go through the whole thing, or should I just try to explain and then we can?
You can run through. I think most of them are familiar with all of it.
Right, you know, Ottawa Sands, we purchased it in 1819, did a master plan, and really did not have funds to improve much of it. But most of you know, we received $3.5 million from the Idaho Foundation to implement certain portions of it, primarily the Idaho Explorers Camp, but also the infrastructure and facilities needed to get to the camp. So that's great, but what this grant is about leveraging some of that money, which we can use as match to do some other improvements, which we think are very important as well. So we have 2 grants going, and this one in particular is to complete a paved loop around the lake. That's everybody wants to do that, but it's not very nice for people who are not very mobile. Even for some people who are pretty mobile, they get tired of walking a mile and a half around on a sandy trail, right?
Yeah, yep, it is.
So, so this is to alleviate this. So this is the paved loop around the trail plus a new paved path going out to the road to connect to the regional trail system. So it's really a big accessibility type of project. So on the map there, it's basically what's in orange, right? You can see around the lake, but also this trail getting out to the road, North Shore Drive on the north, which connects to the trail. Ferrysburg built the trail in conjunction with us along North Shore Drive. So this would connect into that. And yeah, just provide a really super nice accessible system.
Yeah, that's a great amenity that's going to be added to that park, because I experienced that the last couple of times that I walked that trail. It was difficult, especially it bothered my knees after a while walking. And you had to walk almost off the path, walking on hard sides. And you could see that a lot of people have done the same thing.
The trail keeps getting wider because
Yeah,
of
sure
that,
does.
right?
Yeah. So, good.
So we used this Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund to help buy the property too, right?
Yeah, they provided $8 million
Okay.
to help buy this purchase.
And,
This property.
and right now, we have this part going. And you said there's another one too that's out there that we are also working on with them?
Yeah, well, yes, this is a little confusing because there will be another one. Rosie Mound
Okay, yeah.
will be another one. But at this park, if we want to just talk about this now, we also think it would be important to have a modern restroom at this facility, right? Everybody coming, walking a mile around the lake.
I'm just saying, does this organization, the Natural Resource, ever say, oh, it's Ottawa County again? I mean, it's getting a drive right there. And I think it's great that we're able to get that money. I mean, but.
We hope that doesn't happen, but they are very score driven, right? Each of these projects is scored. The criteria are very clear, and we work really hard to meet the criteria. So what usually happens is ours is so high that they can't justify not doing it because it meets their criteria. So we're hoping that happens.
Kurt, correct me if I'm wrong, just Al, to your question, I think, at least there used to be when I did it, there was a question, have you applied for this funding before or received it? And if so, you might get 0 points or something for that particular question, as opposed to someone that had never received that grant. Having said that, to Kurt's point, there's many other questions that are criteria that have points where we excel at getting those points. So that might be one area where we don't get the top score because we've received this grant before.
That's exactly right. They take that into account. The same thing with average income of your county. You know, we're not real low like some counties, and they take that into account, but we still, on a project like this, meet so many of the criteria that they really like to see. And so that's why we're successful.
And how much money is in this natural trust? Does anybody know around about? It comes from the oil and gas leases, right?
Yeah.
And is that dropping? I think I heard somebody said there's not so much.
They just did a constitutional amendment. If you recall last year, they did a constitutional amendment to revise this, to increase the cap.
Okay.
And so for years, decades, they had a cap on that. And we all just voted to increase that last year or in 2020. And so what they spend and they allocate each year, they look at the investment earnings and then allocate those into 2 different pots. So this in particular is for the development portion. The Rosie Mound will be for acquisition. And so when we did the constitutional amendment, it was for 2 things. It will increase the cap, but then it will also put a bigger chunk towards development. And so they've been consistently doing very well, but on their returns. So they evaluate that as a board and then determine how much to allocate towards the grant process. So we will receive a preliminary score in December. No,
September.
in September, and we'll be able to revise our grant application and to be more competitive if we feel like we need to. And we can also evaluate how the markets are doing as well.
So they give us a final decision roughly
In December.
December, and then
Yeah.
the legislature has to appropriate the funding
Yes.
early the following year, early next year. Just a question, you mentioned you're still trying to raise 227,000 in funding for this.
Yes.
Is there any risk if we don't get that funding and have to turn back a grant? If that would.
Well, I think we
jeopardize
have, so we know that there will be state ARPA opportunities to apply for. We think that specifically the trail route is really a critical part of this development, and we would really work hard. We also have proposed this as a project that would be a good project to our Parks Foundation. We would also think it would be a good project for the county when the county decides to work through the ARPA funds for the county funds. So I think we feel really confident we can figure out a way to kind of meet that deficit.
So Al, in answer to your original question, the trust fund was 500 million.
Okay,
I believe the constitutional adjustment made it 800 million.
okay,
So that's how much they're earning interest on.
okay, good, okay, thank you. And Kurt, sorry I interrupted you.
No, you're
No,
fine.
those are all
Sand.
good. Those are all, yeah.
You're talking about the sand, so.
And I'm glad he knew that.
So
I didn't know
Kurt,
the exact-
Kurt, I noticed the parking area. So right now there's parking for about 6 cars.
Technically 15, but yes. it's
Yeah, yeah.
difficult. Yeah,
Depends on how they park, right?
yes.
Yes. So how many parking spots are you?
This, we're talking 50.
50. All
And
right.
some of that will be built as part of the phase 1
Yeah,
construction.
so yes, all that parking at the entry will be gone because that will be a new entrance.
So we won't get the exercise of walking to Coast Guard Park anymore, right?
Well, sure, you can still absolutely.
Oh,
do
yeah, we
that
could
if
have
you
that
want. So
exercise.
don't use that as an excuse not. to
All
do it.
right, all right.
Yeah, fine.
The trail will go to Coast Guard Park.
Right, that's what this is
Okay.
part of it, right? You can see trail connection.
Yeah, I
to
see
North
that,
Shore,
yes.
So it'll be
Yeah,
a
okay.
separated path to get in.
All right, good.
So what's the timeline on the parking, Kurt?
Well, the big overall project is hopefully starting this fall, like the campground and all that
Okay.
stuff. So maybe 2023, this grant is out there a little bit further, so it's more like fall 2023 or early 2024, something like that.
So until we receive the funds, which I'm sure that we will receive the grant since you guys are so good at it. Is there any improvement happening out there from our current dollars that we have at the parks?
There's not,
None, okay.
right? It's all dependent, like we got this big grant from the Idaho Foundation, that's what's driving all of this, so it's kind of on that schedule.
So in the meantime, Roger ought to stay off those speedy.
Yeah, he
trails.
surely should, Roger. You're wrecking the trails.
Yep, you're gonna have to suffer through it,
All
yeah.
right. I'll have to go to North Shore and walk.
One last question. When is the parks millage up for renewal?
2026.
2026,
We got a lot
okay.
of time.
Any additional questions? Thank you for your presentation on this one. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose the same sign, motion passes. Next, regarding the Ottawa Sands day use restroom, the motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the resolution and application to the Land and Water Conservation Fund Program for funding assistance to construct a modern restroom facility at Ottawa Sands day use area as per the Ottawa Sands master plan.
Second.
So we have a motion and support discussion on that.
Just one clarification, Al, this is what I was trying to say before. This is a different grant program,
Okay.
Land and Water
Yeah, I
Conservation
see that.
Fund. which actually is federal money coming through the state, but you submit to the same folks at the state. They manage this grant program.
Have we used this before?
We used it at Grand Ravines,
Oh, okay.
for some of our walkways
Yeah.
and so forth. It has a little bit of different criteria, and that's why we're using it for the restroom. We
But
think
it still is a scored type.
it still is a score type
Yeah.
thing.
Okay.
Yes.
Huh, interesting. Thank you.
Any additional questions regarding the restroom? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign, motion passes. The grant application for Rosie Mound expansion. And the motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners, the resolution and application to the Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund Program for funding assistance for the Rosie Mound expansion project.
So move, second, whatever.
We have a motion and support.
I believe you guys met in closed session recently. We talked about this, right? This is 127 acres directly adjacent to our existing park. Why don't you go to the next one shows the area it actually is. So, yeah, trust fund project again, same exact, just all the stuff we talked about before. We think it's, will score very high. This is kind of interesting. You may not have seen this before. We did a little analysis about it. You know, this was mined for sand for, I don't know how long, 30 years or whatever, but there actually is 72 acres out of this 127 was left in its natural state. So a beautiful natural dune. The other 55 acres, if you've been out there, you know, it's this big bowl, but it actually is fairly natural looking. And just this fall, they did a lot of restoration work out there. So I think it's just going to keep getting better and better. And it's still a very beautiful place, right? If you didn't know, a beautiful place. So, but that does, if you go to the next one, oh, that's just a view. If you've been in there, you kind of know what it is. So it's looking west. But if you look at the next one, we did just an initial analysis of, you know, what could you do for improvements here? And given that it is a mining site and it's got this big flat area in the bottom, there's many options for what could be done with that if we want to. I mean, it's going to be great, just the natural aspects of it. And if we just do trails, that will be great. But there is opportunity to do other things there if we want to. So they require you to submit a little concept plan as part of your grant application. So we did this showing, okay, there's another access from Lakeshore Drive. We could do that. Like I said, there's this big flat area in the middle that would be suitable for lots of things. And then we also think there's more opportunities for dune interpretation up higher where you can actually see the dunes. So we showed that on that, in addition to the trail system connecting into the trail system that's already there.
That's it. Do you know how much sand they took out of it?
I wish we're going to try to find that out because it would be nice to know.
No, I'm not using the right terminology, but I'm going to use Eagle from the state. They come in and say, you know something, we need this more natural and we don't want you to change too much of it or anything like that, or any stipulations.
Sure, Eagle is totally involved in the closeout of the mine and the restoration that they're doing now.
Okay.
So that's all being approved by them. And we did work with the owner on that a little bit to make sure it would be more natural than what they were proposing.
Well, then what, okay, when it's all done,
Yep.
if we have a road trip, we go there, we're gonna see a difference.
You should. I haven't seen it since it was done this fall, but yes, everything should be vegetated in the next couple of years. Yes.
These
Now, oh, go
these
ahead.
are protected dunes, is that correct?
Yeah, it's still, most of it is still in the critical dune area. So what we do, and any improvements, will need to go through Eagle process, just like any other dune area that we work in. Yeah.
Because it was pretty sandy when we were there.
It's pretty sandy.
Well, sand, I mean.
Right.
so, Okay.
So they are required to revegetate basically everything. Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, Kurt, are we looking at the same timeline as the Sandy Park?
Yeah, as I was saying,
September.
sure, we'll get preliminary scores in September. They'll decide in December whether we get the money. The money is allocated in 2023 sometime, and if all goes well, we purchase it late 2023.
So do we receive less points if we're putting in two grant applications at the same time?
That's not, we have to say what one is more important to us if they only fund one, but we've had really good luck getting multiple grants in the same year
Oh, good.
recently, so we're trying it, right?
All right.
And again, Frank, that's like one question or one criteria where we don't excel just because of our past success. But all of the other questions or criteria, we usually score really high that overcomes that one criteria of getting past grades.
So Kurt and Jason, here's the elephant in the room. How's Muskegon County is doing a part very similar and asking for monies just as we are. Is there any chance that the state might say, we need to do that one first?
Yep.
Because
Sure, we are.
It's a score thing, so.
We are competing. I mean, they could say something like Ottawa Sands. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but they could say, hey, can you do this in 2 years so we can spread it out? That's what they're doing at Nugent Sand actually too. I believe it's a multi-year thing. They could ask us to do that here. So yes, we are competing with them.
Yeah.
But what can you do? Yeah.
And how does the size of Nugent Sand compare to the size of Ottawa Sands, for instance?
It's similar to Ottawa Sands. I think
That's
it's
what I
about
thought.
300 and some acres.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And they have a contract on their first parcel and an MOU for the second, but I'm not sure about the second piece, if that's a sure purchase or not. So the first one's done. I'm not sure about the second. The timing on the second.
So we do get points because it's next to an existing park. They consider it a buffer, right? So it protects our existing Rosie Mound natural area. So that is a bonus for this site over maybe Nugent Sand.
I guess the bottom line is the state of Michigan that wants to protect all the lake shore as much as it can, correct?
And when we scored, so we projected this one with when we ran this through our numbers, we projected it in the top 5% of projects. So when we were trying to calculate the matches and the funding models, so depending on what the other projects that are submitted for this year, we think this one will score very well.
I believe just critical dunes, being in critical dunes gets you 50 points out of a potential, I think it's 500 is the max you can get. Most people are fantastic. You can get 400. So 50 out of 400 are just for being in the dunes. Because they want to preserve those if they can.
Yeah.
And we're making the case that there just aren't many sites like this left in Ottawa County, right? 127 acres of dunes, there just isn't around, right? So it's important for us.
Kurt, what's the plan B? What is plan B for either one of these parks if they're not approved this year?
Jason can address this. I think plan B for Rosie Mound, we think this is so important. I think we would engage our foundation to do a big fundraising campaign. We think it would be fundable. I mean, a lot of people couldn't imagine us not having it. We've been very successful doing this before. North Ottawa Dunes was raised on a very fast track to raise a lot of money for that. We think that would be possible for this one here.
Okay.
And we'd work with the owner. We have a friendly owner. Hopefully they would be willing to work with us they're already willing to wait long enough for the grant to come through. Hopefully they would be willing to work with us to figure it out.
Okay. Any additional questions? So we have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same sign. Motion passes. Number 5, investment policy. The motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the revised investment policy for review and comment.
Second.
We have a motion and support discussion.
So this is the treasurer's policy. She couldn't be here today.
Oh,
I'm here.
Cheryl's here.
Yeah.
Yes. She fell. I don't know if you guys knew this. I think she talked with you, Greg, right?
She did,
Yeah.
And
She fell, broke her ankle in 2 spots in her leg on the ice yesterday morning. Yeah. So she's waiting to talk to a surgeon right now.
Oh, no.
So she asked me to say that we compared our current policy with that of the Grand Rapids City investment policy, Kent County, and the model policy developed by the Association of Public Treasurers of the United States and Canada, to ensure that we met all of the criteria. We also sent our investment policy to 3 brokers, only one of which that we work with currently. The policy before you has 2 main changes. One is mainly we added definitions to the policy, and then the other one was we had a separate form that we had brokers and bankers sign off on. It was an agreement to it's an acknowledgement section where they agree to follow our investment policy when they're helping us purchase investments. So that was a separate piece of paper or a separate document. So we just added it to the policy this time.
Additional questions or concerns? Thank you for the explanation. So motion and support, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passes. Regarding the public health receivables, the motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the revised public health receivables write-off rule for review and comment. We have a motion and support.
Do we do this every year?
Did you have,
Sorry, yeah,
was it supported?
yes, I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay, sorry. So this is, we review these periodically. These are policies that we review. This policy in particular, there's really, it's really just housekeeping. We're updating names and titles. This is a required write-off policy for our Title VI federal grant. So when you're billing for Medicaid services, you have to have a policy to document how you're writing those off. And so that's what this does.
Okay.
And so when we receive those funds, we're required to have a policy in place in which to document this. And that's why it's public health only. CMH
So I was
may
gonna say-
eventually need this,
Okay.
but
okay.
they're currently they were capitated. And so it's not required in that capitated system.
Okay.
But now with that new CCBHC grant, if I'm saying that acronym correctly, they may be billing Medicaid for fee for service, and then they might need something like this too. So we may need to amend it and include CMH in the future, but right now it's just public health.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for Karen on this motion? So we have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose the same sign, motion passes. Next, regarding military service credit, the motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the internal policy review. Team's recommendation to retire the military service credits policy.
Second.
We have a motion and support, discussion.
Yeah, this policy essentially has expired. If you look in there, anyone that wanted to take advantage of this had to do so by January 1st, 2013.
Yeah.
And the county no longer contributes the cost of purchasing that credit service like it used to back then.
Okay.
I was surprised to see, I thought this was going away a long time ago.
Yeah, so this is sort of, as Karen mentioned, we try to review all of our policies at least once every 2 years. So this one came up and felt this is.
So help me again. When was this expired?
January 1st, 2013.
Okay, just a stupid question. How come it took this long to do that? I mean, that's just about 10 years.
Yeah, I don't know how, I don't have a great answer for that, to be honest with you.
So
Karen,
can we blame Al on that?
He's not here. Yeah, he's not here, Russ.
Why
We
not?
can.
You can blame me. I'll take the heat for this, but this is just part of our cleanup and review. And so at this point, we said, well, we'll bite the bullet and get this one taken care of.
Okay, and I'm asking questions so that, okay, this is gonna be public now that we are doing that. could the veterans take this in a wrong way and say, oh, Ottawa County, you're not supporting veterans?
I mean, I guess that's always possible, but our response would be, we haven't done this in 9 years.
Okay, okay.
And.
You get what I'm asking?
The perception.
Yeah, perception. That's exactly
I
right.
understand that.
Yeah,
And-
the plan is closed.
Yeah.
Yes, I know, but nowadays, people will think different, so.
And whether that played a role in why has this been 9 years? Maybe.
I think, John, it might be important for you to, when this comes up, to explain the fact that this plan has been closed for.
Yeah, the plan's closed and anyone eligible to do this, they would have had to take advantage of this 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Because the deadline was that.
Well, so it's closed at the county level or is it closed at the state level as well?
Our MERS defined benefit plan is closed
At the county
at the
level.
At
county
the
level.
county, okay.
And John, correct me if I'm wrong, but this policy was only for county employees only. Okay, not
Okay.
any,
Okay.
not any.
Oh, good.
Yeah, not for,
Not for the
not like a
general
benefit
public.
that someone would go to the Veterans Affairs
Yeah.
Committee to receive a benefit. Yes,
Okay.
that is,
Okay.
that
Only
is
for
correct.
county.
Employees, thank you. Okay.
I
Yes.
think it's important for you to bring that up.
Yeah, this isn't someone,
So
a veteran coming off and looking for some type of financial assistance. This has nothing to do with that.
either you or Karen needs to bring that forward.
But if I'm not mistaken, I know I worked with Justin on this. There's veteran awards through the clerks for the registered deeds. I mean, one of those was that I paid for their home inspection if they used me as an agent. So I know there's different awards out there for veterans, so.
Yeah, and again, our Veterans Affairs Committee already provides a bunch of assistance, whether it's burial assistance or we've had it where someone's water heater broke and they didn't have the funds. So we either use some of our own funds through the Veterans Affairs Committee or with the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund
Okay.
to provide that type of financial assistance. But this was to Greg's point, this was a benefit that expired 9 years ago, but it was a benefit only for county employees.
Okay, thank you.
And in fact, I think this Friday, Madison, you are going to be, along with Justin, presenting at the chamber breakfast
Yep, we'll be presenting on honor awards.
on veteran events, right?
So we have a motion to support. Any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
I
Opposed, the same sign. Motion passes. Participating in conferences and convention policy, the motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the internal policy review team's recommendation to retire the participating in conferences and conventions policy.
So
This just didn't seem like a policy to us. I mean, we budget every year for you to attend conferences. Weren't sure we really needed a policy to, it seemed like an unnecessary not regulation, but unnecessary policy. And then it had I talked to the smartest person in the room here, Karen, said, how do we calculate number 3, the costs that we'll reimburse for travel? It was some convoluted formula that none of us can figure out. But it just, on a bigger level, it just seemed, why do we have a policy that says, let's encourage commissioners to go to conferences? It just seems like an unnecessary policy.
And it hasn't been, again, it's something that was missed in all the reviews because it hasn't been looked at in a very long time.
I think this is something that Denise Short helped kind of put together to push commissioners to go to more conventions because we had 0 participation. And you want to start getting them out there. So we made a policy on it to try to push them to do it more.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was effective or not at the time, but it just seemed like an unnecessary. I think the presence now of a policy would not necessarily further encourage a commissioner to go or not go to a conference. So.
And then the board is very active. So
Right.
it seems.
So I thought I read somewhere, John, in the board policies where it does say that there's a limit as to how many commissioners are able to attend, let's say, one conference? All 11 of us can go to NACO at the same time. Is that possible? I mean, so we don't need a policy to be able to determine half of the commission can go, or?
And I don't know the number, but when we budget, when we allocate funds in the budget, you're correct. We don't allocate for all 11 to go. I think it may be 3, 4, or 5. And so the budget sort of is our policy as to, now the commission can always say, hey, we want you to amend the budget because we want 7 of us to go, for
Okay.
example. But we usually have the budget drive that number more than a policy.
So there is a policy for that.
That I don't, that part I don't know.
In the past, I think what we've done is, myself and I think several others have gone to Al and said, you know, I'd like to go. Is this good? And Al had kind of a number in mind in terms of how many
We had to take an
dollars.
envelope.
Well, and the number in mind was what we had in the budget.
Yeah,
And again, if say the budget said 3 commissioners and 5 wanted to go, well, the board has the power to amend the budget to do that.
right.
And so in those years, I'm sure we would have amended the budget to pay for the 2 additional commissioners to go to whatever conference it was.
So it's really not a policy then,
No.
it's more a.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that policy. We just set probably on recent history. Well, in the recent history, we've allocated, and I'm making the number up because I really don't know what it is, 4 commissioners to go to NACO and 4 to go to MAC.
Right.
And that's worked out well. So we've usually been consistent with that. And then those years where we have less, then we have a budget savings. And those years we have more, we do a budget amendment to reflect that.
From each year, can you carry over the money from the budget? Like,
No.
Okay.
That's a question every
I
department
don't
head
know.
asks all the time, and Karen is always pretty mean about it and says no. No, it goes back into our general fund balance. So it has to be reallocated the following year.
And it's always very nice at budget time when everyone wants to go to more and more conferences that, you know, it's
But,
the
yeah.
board, we try to set some growth limit to that, maybe equal to the tax growth or something, so that conference line isn't growing. So, and the board kind of tries to follow along with, at least in the budget, Al has always tried to have the board follow along with what we're asking departments and other elected officials to do. So.
Is there
Okay.
anything in here, John or Karen, that you think that may come back to this board, let's say down the road, that maybe we should have kept it? I mean, as you reviewed this, is there anything in here that would throw up red flags down the road? Like we should have had a policy, or we should have kept the policy, or?
Because we already have, policies in terms of the types of expenses that we'll reimburse for and the mileage and all that kind of stuff. So we don't really need that in here. So I'm not seeing anything that will come back to haunt us.
Okay,
There's a separate travel policy. It was almost, the tone of this almost struck me as, please go to,
Yeah.
please get involved.
Yeah.
We will
Yes.
reimburse
And
you.
then, hey,
Here's
I'm gonna
this
go. No,
very
you can't,
convoluted
because we're at
process
our
of how
floor
we're
limit.
gonna figure
I mean,
out
that's like
how
a
much
kick
you'll
in
be
the teeth.
reimbursed.
I think this is,
And again, our limit was in the budget, but again, you have the power to say, we budgeted 3 commissioners. We want 4 to go. We're willing to amend the budget, and we've done that.
but it could be the same 4 every year.
It could be.
well, that's a good question. So what would?
Yeah,
So
and
who
then
would make the decision?
some
as
of
to
them are
which-
gonna say, I asked once, I'm not gonna ask again, I'm not going. So, then I think that policy has to be changed and say, oh, Roger, you went last year, you ain't going this year, somebody else is going.
And I
That's
think-
what I'm,
Yeah, and I get that, and maybe that's just something that you guys have been able to work out, and if it gets to the point where
I think
you guys are doing fist fights over it, maybe then we have to put a policy there to do an alternating set of commissioners, but you guys work, as we say, you play well in the sandbox. It hasn't been an issue, and if it becomes an issue, I think we can put a policy together for that. I don't think it's necessary now based on the current board makeup, but
I
Mike
think in the
Covenant
past,
and me did not get to go to Washington DC when we were invited. And me and Mike paid our own way down there. So, and that was Al's call. See, and that always, it rubbed Mike and it rubs me the wrong way. You know, that you're having the administrator play God and say, you know, this is what we're gonna do.
I think what we would do is say, look, the budget said 4 could go, 5 want to go. If you want 5 to go, are you good with amending the budget?
And following the normal travel policy, which also needs to be reviewed as well, but the travel policy that we have a separate travel policy that reimburses for all expenses when you travel on county business.
I think it has to be changed drastically.
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking that if 4 guys went 1 year, they can't go the following year. Then some other ones. Now, if the other ones that can go say, no, I don't care to go, then you could pick one from the other 4. You get what I'm getting at? Because some of them are gonna say, no, I can't go, well, then I'm not gonna, and they will never ask again. You know, they'll just say, no, I don't have to go to the conference, so.
But I think, you know, when I think of the Lansing conference, most people that go every time, right? I mean, I used to go all the time. I can't go this time. I was gonna go because this guy twisted my arm, but again, most of those guys go every year, right? And the same thing, when we have the annual conference, we have the same guys that go every time. And I think anybody that wants to go to the annual conference goes. And to say you can't go if you went the last time. I mean, when we went to the island, how many guys went? 6, 7, something like that. The rest of them didn't want to go.
No, but
So you're gonna say to those 7 that, oh, the next time, we're gonna throw it open to these other guys that really don't wanna go. See what I'm saying? I think we leave
Yeah.
it like it is. Because I agree with John. We've been able to make it work. That was an unusual situation, I think, with you and Mike.
my cat was.
Well, I think
Because
that,
I don't think there was any other situation that I can think of that.
I think that up to now that we've been able to play nice in the sandbox. as
That's
John
right.
Said it. But we don't know what the
That's right.
composition of this board would be, let's say, down the road.
Right.
And would there be a need to have something in place? And I'm not saying it needs to be a policy, but maybe just an agreement that there has to be, whether it's the chairperson and the administrator, decide how that's going to work out.
I think we let.
I don't know if I want to play God among you guys.
I think we let the budget
Yeah.
determine.
It might be a bad evaluation for that.
Yeah.
I think Karen's suggestion was that we let the budget, and if we have to amend the budget to increase, we will.
So, but okay, let's say we got 7 of us that want to go. The budget's for 4. Who picks, who goes?
I think we,
I've
then
got-
we determine.
That's
the
what I'm
budget.
getting at, Roger.
No, I
Who
think
get-
we do a budget amendment, just like Karen
Yes.
said.
So then really, then why even have a budget amount of people? If you're gonna pass the budget for 7, then let's put 7 in right away.
I think I've got a better answer. I
You
think,
do?
yeah, I think we open it up to everybody. You know,
It's always open.
I mean, why would we want to limit somebody? I think we've got a great group here. A group of 11 commissioners that are engaged in the county, they're engaged in their communities and stuff like that. And not everybody goes to everything, and
Oh, that's
I
right.
understand that. But if you want to take away all the obstacles here, open it up to everybody.
Thank you.
If you want to go, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just hard for me to say this, be a Dutch conservative, but we do work hard at this. We do work hard at this job. We take great pride in what we're doing. We're showing up in the communities. So if we want to go to a conference, I think we should be able to go to a conference. And that way, there's no picking and choosing, there's
That's
no
right.
playing God. And
So that's getting to what Karen and I are saying. I don't think we would budget all 11 to go to a conference because it rarely happens and then you're needlessly setting aside money for nothing. What I'm hearing from Greg's comments is say we budget 5.
Yeah.
And 8 want to go.
Yeah.
Then that means you guys are okay with us amending the budget to have 8 go.
And actually, we have we have the same conversation with departments, because certain years you have turnover, someone needs to be trained up, they need a little bit more this year than they did last year. So we try to balance between budgeting every year, a large amount for each area. So we set aside a contingency specifically for conferences. And if you have a need outside, then we just reallocate from that contingency to accommodate their need that year. Because the need changes depending on what's happening in each area. The need changes. So we try to set that aside and kind of hold that growth to something that's manageable, and then accommodate people when there's a need.
I just don't want to say we got a new commissioner on here and we all talk about a conference and he signs up. No, you're the sixth person. We're only allowing 4, sorry.
So what I'm hearing here is, we'll budget how we budget, and if it exceeds the budget, it sounds like the commission will say, we will approve that budget amendment. That's what
I think everybody, in fairness, we only got 5 of us here. I think everybody has to know that equally, that, if there's a conference and more people, we usually have 4 or 5 going, but if more people want to go, the opportunity is, so like Al says, so somebody doesn't say, I never get a chance to go. I think everybody needs to know that the conference is available, should you want to go, even though we budgeted 5 or 6 or whatever.
Well, so this particular policy, right, actually, it doesn't even include how many members can go or attend. So
No,
It's trying to get people to go.
Yeah.
And so we have, all these years later, we have kind of the opposite problem.
Is this policy for everybody in the county or is it
For the
aimed
board.
right
it's for the board.
just us?
Yeah, we have, as Karen said, a separate travel policy, which doesn't say we encourage employees to go to training. It lays out, here's how we're going to reimburse for meals and mileage and so forth.
And the suggested motion in front of us is to retire the participate.
So this policy would go, if approved by the board, this policy would go away.
Yeah. That's good.
Does that mean we're not encouraging people to participate then?
Correct. We're discouraging to help our budget so we don't get in this fight that we just had the last half hour.
Let's not get.
No, I'm just kidding.
We don't want anybody playing God.
Amen. Any further lively discussion on this one? So the motion and support, all those in favor, say aye. Oppose the same sign, motion passes. Under discussion item, next thing is our legislative issues. John?
Yeah, we haven't had a ton of movement. The latest we've heard on the big one on the CMH bills, Senate Bills 597, 598, they had not yet have enough votes in the Senate to pass that. And I know CMH, our lobbyist, Bob DeVries, through our office, as well as the sheriff's office, has been really lobbying Roger to vote no on that. And so right now he's a no, but I understand we're probably 2 to 3 votes short in the Senate to get that passed. And so we still don't know where the governor, if this does pass the Senate and the House, we don't know where the governor's been very quiet on this. And that leads us to believe, right or wrong, that this could be a horse trade type of situation where, all right, she'll support this bill in exchange for something else. Because she just won't provide a position on this. So we don't know if she'll veto this if it does pass the Senate. But first things first, there's still a few votes short, and Sheriff Kemper's done a really good job, as well as Lynn and our lobbyists in terms of, and I've talked to Roger as well, to vote no on this. And so far that's held. He's still in the no column. So that's.
But if it passes the Senate, it still has to pass the House after that yet, right?
Yep.
And if I'm not mistaken, at the end of the year, December 31, it has not passed. It's dead, right?
Right.
They have to.
So
bring it back up.
the longer this can drag out, the better.
Okay, thank you.
So other than that, and I know one of the things, and we're going to talk about this under discussion, there is a bill that would allow members of a public body to meet on Zoom, not only if they have military duty, which is the current law, but also if they have a medical condition. So let's just say, hypothetically, someone slips and falls on the ice and breaks their ankle in 2 places, and it's one of you guys, if that bill passes, you'd be able to participate in a board meeting from home on Zoom. Right now, you would not be able to do that. Because right now, the only exception for participating by Zoom is if you're on medical duty.
But that leaves it pretty wide open with
Yeah.
COVID right now.
It does.
I was
Yeah, it
exposed
didn't
to
really
somebody
def-
with
it didn't-
COVID 10 days ago, I think. So I'm gonna be on Zoom.
So anyway, we can have more discussion because Greg had asked to put on the agenda, I think it was the Michigan Attorney General's opinion on remote participation, and wanted to talk about that for committee meetings as well as the board. Other than that, there hasn't been really a lot of movement on any of this at this point. So that's my report on the legislative.
I have a question for Phil. Has MAC taken a position on the health package on the community mental health issue at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
They did.
So they're out there lobbying, obviously, our
Yep.
legislators.
And John works with Dina quite a bit, so he
Yeah, we're all in the same.
Yeah.
Mac's opposed to it. Michigan Sheriff's Association is opposed to it. The CMH associations are opposed to it. Just the worrying part is it's the Senate Majority Leader that has sponsored these bills. And so, behind the scenes, hey, I need your support for this, or you're not going to get help on this and this bill. I mean, that's just how it works.
Good example of that is Roger's bill. 885, he talked about it at the Farm Bureau breakfast and everything. And then I had another meeting with him at Request Foods, and he talked about, they asked him how this all lays out, and he said he cannot get it out of his committee. He can't bring it to the committee from his committee. It has to go to another one. And then the leadership will take it out. And Roger looked right at me and I thought, oh yeah, here we go again. This is what you said, some horse trading. I'll get that bill out on the floor, but then you're gonna have to vote for mine here. So that was a little.
That's happened
Yep.
for
For you.
millennia.
Yep, exactly. And Arlen Meekoff was there too at the same meeting. And Arlen explained how this all works. He says, the leadership is what's gonna direct it. So anyway.
John, Bob is reporting back to us on the 24th as well. Bob DeVries
Yeah.
giving us an update.
Oh, he'll update on that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Was there anything else, John, on number 2, or that's it? Okay. So then next we'll go to public comment. It's a second opportunity for public comment. Okay, seeing none.
Well, we had one more discussion item before we had.
That's why I just asked if you had anything else, number 2. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about legislative issues. Just Attorney General Dana Nessel had issued an opinion, and this, I think, affected, and Doug, correct me if I'm wrong, that state entities could provide remote meeting participation to board members in the public, under ADA. And that would not violate the Open Meetings Act. Now it's an Attorney General opinion, and I think it was specific to state entities, but it came up with respect to committee meetings here and whether we are considered a public body as a committee, and whether we have to religiously or strictly follow the Open Meetings Act like we do for a Board of Commissioners meeting or a Brownfield Redevelopment Authority meeting, et cetera. Because I've had questions, from commissioners, hey, can I participate via Zoom? Because, maybe they are sick or something like that. And Doug, I think you've said before, hey, we're not, committees here to provide a recommendation, if I'm not mistaken. It's not a decision-making body. Therefore, we technically don't have to follow Open Meetings Act, although we generally do. So
we follow the Open Meetings Act as a practice, not as a requirement. So if it's just a practice and you truly are an advisory group, you can fully participate via Zoom if that's what you want.
use a mic.
All right. Participate is an interesting word, and the statute does seem to suggest now that you can't participate in a full board open meeting by Zoom. In my opinion, if participation is limited to discussion, it's irrational to me that the public can participate and a committee, a member can. So I don't see any problem at all, even in an open meetings act setting. If someone wants to participate in the discussion.
Even at a board meeting.
Absolutely. I mean, how many votes do we really have where it comes down to one vote?
The robot.
So what you're saying is that if someone were in Florida and they wanted to participate, they could even participate in the discussion and not vote
Correct. At a full board meeting. In my
on a
opinion.
full board meeting.
Yeah.
And
On a committee like this.
On a
they would be-
committee,
At these board meetings,
you
they
can
could
vote.
participate and vote.
Correct. Because they're advisory only, and so they're not technically subject to the Open Meetings Act. And just because by practice you allow public comment and you post, doesn't mean you're agreeing to follow the rigors of the Open Meetings Act to the letter. So I see no reason why, and I honestly believe we're eventually going to get to the point where full participation can be by Zoom. And when you think about,
Yeah.
I know there's some
future is-
irrational fears that someone behind the camera view is going to be controlling the vote. I mean, there's irrational stuff like that. But the reality is we're moving in that direction, and that may encourage more people to participate as public servants.
Well, so to be clear then, John and Doug, when it comes to committee meetings, we would be able to participate via Zoom. And I mean, participate and vote
Correct.
and make the quorum, which we're really not a quorum to begin with, of
Right.
the board.
Right. Correct.
Okay.
Just not at a board meeting. What Doug is saying is a commissioner could participate via Zoom and discuss, but just not be able to vote.
Yeah, in answer to your
Like the
question.
public, basically.
Right.
Yeah, I don't really share Attorney General Nessel's viewpoint on the ADA being applicable to the board level. You know, most of that's an employment concept. And you're not employees, you're officers. And to me, the Open Meetings Act would supersede the ADA. I think that's a little liberal for my taste in trying to superimpose that statute where it really doesn't belong. That having been said, I don't see a problem if participation is limited to discussion.
Right.
Why you should be discriminated against from the public. You know, I know the public has just a couple sections, but the reality is we sometimes allow people to speak even during our and I've participated by Zoom at times. So I'm, as a guest, I will sometimes participate in the discussion. I don't see anything in the Open Meetings Act that would really restrict that. Furthermore, if for some reason you needed that vote, the penalty in the Open Meetings Act, is you just have to ratify it the next meeting. So let's say you really did need, as a grant or something, you needed to move something past the Board of Commissioners and you needed that person in Florida's vote to get it done. You do it, and then the next meeting, you ratify it, and that's the only penalty under the Open Meetings Act. And so I don't really see a problem with a workaround like that, even in extraordinary circumstances.
Doug, if I'm understanding you right, even this committee, okay, we could at some point in time, all of us not even show up, just do this whole thing again by Zoom like we did in the height of the virus and.
Yeah.
And
Now, I think, Commissioner, that you have some strong feelings about trying to prefer in-person meetings because of the interaction of the board and getting to know each other and things like that. And so I think there is a danger to go too far the other extreme. And so internally, you can have some rules about, not participating even at, let's say, a full board meeting, if you wanted to give someone the ability to take a vacation to Florida and still participate. That's one thing. Spending the winter, like some of our road commissioners, I think, used to do down in Florida, and participating month after month may be something that you want to have an internal rule against, just for all the policy reasons you've talked about. So there's some internal, discipline you can have within your body as to how you want to promote the kind of participation that you have. And then there's the rigors of the Open Meetings Act, which, to my way of thinking at this point, even for a full Open Meetings Act, simply has some restrictions on the voting, with even the ability to deviate now and then and correct it later.
I think future commissions are probably gonna go leaning more and more towards allowing Zoom participation. Because I think for younger people, I mean, we're all old guys, right? We're all old guys that
No,
Madison's generation are gonna say, what are you talking about? Meeting in person, right?
I'm not saying anything.
Well, we had an incident yesterday. If you know what Sanford and Son is, then you need to meet in person. But if you don't know who Sanford and Son is, then yeah, you're gonna want to meet digitally. And I think honestly, right now, recruiting is going to be an issue for public boards.
Yeah.
You guys have been willing to dedicate your time, and in most of you with semi-retirement, but finding people, in their 30s and 40s to make the sacrifices has been difficult for even our commission.
Anything else?
Nope, that's what you had wanted on the agenda for that discussion, so.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then we've already done public comment. Any other input from the commissioners here before we adjourn? Lively meeting today. Thank you for your participation in person. Motion to adjourn, please. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you.